Hi guys, welcome back to Motor For You. So today is Tuesday the 28th of April. What I wanted to talk to you about was someone asked me what would they do to start a dealership now and what it would take. So in this little mini series we're going to talk about basically how I started and how I got here to how I would start a dealership today or a used car sales business. I've got over 25 years of experience. I've never worked in a car dealership, never. Not once, not one day, never. I only got the experience of my own, and it's been tough because I think on one hand you can use all the experience of a main agent or a supermarket or a used car sale, but then there's a lot to be said for having the experience of experiencing all the ups and downs, and we've learned from ups and downs. And I have got a sales background, so my background is basically finance. So I used to work in motor insurance. I worked in motor insurance for many years. Then I moved into cross-selling, so I'd cross-sell motor insurance into life insurance, pensions, things like that. Then I moved into mortgages, refinancing, commercial mortgages, and then I moved into property in the when my children were born, 91, 92 and 96. I ended up with a few properties in North London. I had a flat in Little Venice, flat in St John's Wood, 2 flats in Cricklewood, flat in Dulwich, and then in 1998 the crash happened, so I lost everything, the whole lot. And we had 3 kids, and my mother-in-law gave me a room in her house. So we lived in that room for 4 years, and the first 2 years I went through a bit of depression. So from having everything and spunking it, I wasted it. At one stage we were earning really good money and I just spent it on nonsense, limos, going out, drugs, everything, and it was tough. And then when I woke up with no money, I just started kicking myself for wasting it where I should have invested it. And my mother-in-law, bless her heart, Eve, she paid for everything. She paid for my kids' food, she paid my rent, she paid everything. And we lived in that one room, we ate in that room, we slept in that room. And then one of my friends came round and he was a car dealer. And I went back to college to be a mature student. And he said to me, "Ree, would you sell this car for me?" He knew I wouldn't take charity. He said, "Would you sell this car for me?" It was a Saab 900, the ones with the key right down the bottom. It had a night, because Saab are well known for aircraft, so they had a night button. You press the night button, everything go black, the dash and everything. It was an old 900i, and I sold it for him and made about 400 quid. And I thought, oh, this is quite simple. It was quite easy, you know, we're talking about early 2000s. So basically I took my student loan, I got a student loan of 1,800 quid and bought a car. The first car I bought was a D-Reg 325 Sport. The number plate was D686VAN. And it had been rolled and I didn't know. The roof was caved in and the bloke said to me, he was a trader, he said, "Oh, it's just got a bit of damage on the roof. You could do the damage on the roof, you'll get like 6 grand for it." I paid about 1,800 quid for it, all my money. And I remember driving it back from Gatwick and it was crabbing down the road. So it drove like that down the road. Got it back and Joe's brothers, my wife's brothers, one of them was a really competent mechanic and he had a car sound stereo shop. And the other one used to do brakes and all the rest of it, because they used to strip motorbikes. They knew a lot about motorbikes. So they helped me find a painter, we'd done the roof, we'd done the bits and pieces, and I sold it and I got my money back. And then my mate took me to BCA Blackbush. And this is years and years ago, 20 odd years ago. And went into Hall 3 and I bought a Citroen AX. I paid about 900 quid for it, got it back, a GT, and I sold it for 1,500 quid. And in them days, you had to go on Auto Trader, you had to take the pictures yourself. You could wait for the Auto Trader rep to come to your house and he'd do the pictures and you'd describe it on this little carbonated paper. And then I ended up doing it myself, so I would take the pictures myself, have them developed down the road, fill out the carbonated paper and then take it to the offices on a Monday, and then on Thursday the magazine would come out. There was no internet. So I sold that and I made about 500 quid, I think it was. And then I went back there and I bought an AXD, which was a diesel, and I'll never forget this. I was driving it back and it broke down. and the head gasket went on it. And I rang my wife because I couldn't get back home. I had no AA membership, no RAC, we had no money. I rang my wife and my wife said to me, Joe, she said to me, why don't you just give up? Why don't you just give up? You're on the side of the road, the car's broken down. And I said, look, I'm going to give it one more go. So I got it back. I used my mate's AA membership. I pretended to be him, got it back to Beckenham. And I got my mate to fix it for about $380, I think it was, and I ended up selling it, losing some money on it. But all the time, I was selling them off my mother-in-law's driveway in Beckenham. And little did I know, we ended up selling hundreds of cars from that little driveway. But I had a real knack for it, and I really enjoyed it. And then I found out one of my old schoolmates had a showroom down in Beckenham. So he used to sell Golf convertibles, H-Reg, J-Reg, Helios Blue, white ones, campaign models, all that. So I used to get up at 5 in the morning, get the Loot magazine, which nobody knows about now, go and buy one off the street, and I'd trade it to him for 100 quid. So I used to make 100 quid a day doing that, and then I'd buy one a month from the auctions and make £1,000 on that. So we started buying and selling, and then my first showroom came out in Sydenham High Street, and a friend of mine owned it. And he said to me, Ree, listen, I need a partner. He'd split up with his brother as a partner. Do you want to come in and run the showroom and everything else? But you need to bring in 50 grand. And I didn't have 50 grand in no way. And my mother-in-law remortgaged her house, bless her heart, and lent me it on the understanding that I gave her a new kitchen, which I'll never forget, was 4,400 quid. So we've done this kitchen for her, and I went out and bought some cars, gave him the 50 grand, moved in there, and then I found out all the cars were Japanese imports and they were seller return. So he didn't actually have any stock in there. So I worked there for 2 years, 7 days a week. I had 3 young kids. He used to come in on a Saturday in his new Ferrari, take £1,000 and go to Harrods for lunch. So I was doing 7 days a week. Anyway, after 2 years, I said to him, I said, Ralph, look, I can't do this anymore. I'm doing 7 days a week. You're in every Saturday, because he was a jeweller. And I said, I'm leaving. He said, well, you owe me 27 grand. And I was so stressed out. I said, you know what? I'm just going to leave with the 23 grand and go from there. But I still owed my mother-in-law the 50 grand. So all I had was 23 grand. And we'd rented a house in Beckenham. And in the meantime, we'd moved a few times. We'd rented a few houses. But every time you sold cars from there, they'd kick you out. And I had 3 kids. So I'm selling cars from the driveway, they're kicking me out. I'm selling cars from the driveway, they kick me out. I moved 10 times in 10 years. It's tough. Really tough. And my wife had no stability, but she stuck by me. We're still together now. And we rented this house in Beckenham. It was a big house with a big driveway and everything. And I went to Wimbledon car auctions. It was called CMA. And I used to buy like Renault 5 GT turbos, 205 GTIs, RS Turbo Custom C-Regs, and I'd sell them from there. I'd pay like 1,500 quid, sell them for 24.95, make £1,000, 800 quid, stuff like that. And I built up my money to 50 grand and made able to pay off the mortgage on my mother-in-law's house. So I had that, and I had about 10 grand to work with. But all the time I worked 7 days a week. I was getting to know people, I was networking, I was doing everything. And I worked from home for years and years. And then in 99, I finally bought back a house in Groveland Road in Beckenham. I paid 154 grand. I'll tell you how house prices went. I sold that house in 2010 for 700 grand. That's mad, isn't it? Mad. Anyway, the story continues and continues. There were some ups and downs. I got burgled, had some money go missing, I borrowed money off the wrong people, paid back tons of interest. There's so many stories. In 2006, we were doing really well, and my wife really wanted a new house. We went to see this house, and it was 700 grand. It was a lot of money. I still own the house now in Park Langley in Beckenham. My wife said to me, Ree, if you buy me this, I'll never ask for anything again. But it was in a conservation area, so I couldn't work from home. So I said, do you know what, let me go and try and find a site. So I've got this site in a storage yard. It was parking for 10 cars and some containers and a little office upstairs. So I started from there, and I started buying and selling there because I couldn't sell from the conservation area. And then from there, it went to a little showroom in Elmer's End in Beckenham, where we'd done really well. It was 17 cars. Then we moved to another little tiny showroom in Beckenham, which was about 12 cars. Then we moved to Croydon, went to 3 different showrooms in Croydon. Then we opened the one that we were there for 8 years, and then we moved here. And that is the story behind the growth. But in between there's been a lot of hard graft, my kids joining, us working like dogs, opening up an MOT centre. We also got burgled at Sunningdale Coachworks in Croydon. It had 8 cars go missing, and there was, you know, a lot of grief there. I nearly jacked it in because they nicked 40 logbooks, some cash, keys to 40 cars. My McLaren SLR, which I had at the time, I left at home because it was Priya's last day at school and I took it to pick her up. I flew to Monte Carlo for a weekend with my wife. I got a helicopter from Nice into Monaco, landed, woke up in the morning and Pash rang me and said, "Dad, we've been burgled." They nicked 8 cars, which was another nightmare. That's another story. But I've got so many stories. There's my mate Hiron, who had a showroom, and then he ended up in tons of debt. He took money off dealers and ended up in like £3 million worth of debt. They used to put him in the boot of a car and throw him out, and everyone was taking cars, and mad times. The 2000s were mad in the car game. It was like the Wild West. And then BCA helped me out with a £2.5 million loan, which I've now paid off. I don't know if I've mentioned that in the past videos. But getting to here now, you know, 23, 24, we turned over 30 million. We made 2.5 million, which is incredible. And the team we've got, what we've built. No one's journey in business is easy, especially when you come from a background of my background, being from the West Indies, Guyana. My parents never went to school. Education was not a big thing for them, and they didn't believe in education. I've had to self-taught everything. It's been a really interesting journey, and every day is a new vision, a new way of doing things. And now we've started on the Japanese journey, and that's really interesting. But we always want to be the best at what we do, and it's not without heartache. But I fight my battles every day, you know what I mean? And I enjoy them. I enjoy what we do because every day is different. And to have what we have now is such a nice feeling of what we own and what we have and what we do, and working with all my kids, you know. So that's my journey. What I'm going to do, we're going to clip it there for a minute, and then I'm going to talk about what I would do today if I had £1,800 and start again. So thank you for joining on my background. Any questions? I know you guys like to hear how I started, how we got here, and everyone's journey is different. Everyone's journey is like a tidal wave. You know, it's all different. So I'll be back with you soon to talk about what I would do now. Thank you very much.